came out in the news that they were going to, in the newspaper, that they were going to that RTA Staples Street station. I knew it was relatively new, and when I looked it up, it's a huge structure. I wasn't able to determine what the cost of it was, but it's huge. It was built in 1995.
Yeah.
It's 19 years old. They're going to tear it down. And it seemed like it. A lot of people have also been complaining about the destruction of the Melwood Theater over there, and it ties in with that. It appears that the owner.
Well, they're tearing down historical markers. They got this demolition fad where they sort of want to wipe out, but it's a selective demolition of history.
I might joke. I told people, I have an older apartment building with a Spanish facade, and I made jokes to people. Said, I don't know. They'll be coming after me next. It appears that there's no respect for history, or at all in the city. Is that right? Or is that?
Your office is right there on Elizabeth Street, right across from Swan Shoreline. Yeah. It's just a darn shame where you don't see any historical pride. It's like this power elite that is hitting Corpus Christi from 4 different angles, north, south, east, west, demolishing everything from Memorial to the north side. Now we see all those little streets around Swan Shoreline. They're not telling us many things,
Part of the demolition hasn't been discussed. They're definitely want to get rid of Elizabeth Street. How many years has that street been there?
I think they're trying to use a tactic of shock and awe, of confusion, where people are just paralyzed for that period. I think there's going to be 3 bond elections. There's the Memorial demolition issue. There's the elections. The community is segmented in many different ways.
There's so many. The shock and awe is accurate because there's so many demolitions going on.
But keep in mind that
we even know it. Things that we spent money on, whether it was the Columbus fleet, whether it was a new RTA station, that's the taxpayers' money of every ethnic group in the city. It's not just.
Yeah, they're trying to pit they're trying to say like Memorial is just the West Side issue. The theater we tore down on Leopard is just that area. But really, it's not an ethnic issue. It affects 96% of the taxpayers that are not part of that power elite that has a cottage industry. In other words, they make their living with public dollars, taxpayers' dollars. Memorial, why Memorial? And I said because Memorial gets public dollars. They're trying to build a new hospital spawn. They're trying to create a monopoly in the health system, so on and so forth. We have, people talk about Catholic charities. People don't know the history even of Catholic charities. It was started by Sarita East. It was her money. Somehow it got institutionalized and used. There's a fund there used for special projects. But here we're starting to see several interest groups come together and mastermind this. The terrible thing, Mark, is that they kept the people in the dark. I know you asked for a open records request as to what they're going to do with some of the streets. I think Memorial hasn't responded, right? The CEO of Spawn.
The open records request were to the city regarding proposed zoning changes, etc. Whether or not Elizabeth Street's going to be closed, whether or not how much money are going to be paid, whether or not it's going to be considered about the diminished values and properties of the people who may be businessmen like myself who are on Elizabeth Street. In other words, shoreline area, which hasn't been covered. Everyone keeps talking about the demolition of Spahn Memorial, but in a manner of speaking, there's Spahn shoreline is going to be destroyed too.
Yes.
Two buildings, another commercial building along Spahn, along the Shoreline Drive, and that commercial building pays taxes. Unlike Spahn, Spahn Hospital. That's another issue that I tried to bring up.
I think recently, I think recently a doctor from the Robstown area that opened an office here was given a life sentence or something like that for Medicare fraud. And we recently discovered some documents online, actual lawsuits, where Spahn had to pay back millions. They were engaging not only in Medicare fraud for several years. Yes, it was probably more. Yes, and they also had to pay the relator, the whistleblower, $1.5 million or so. So apparently, they also were classifying outpatients as inpatients to gauge the, or what do you call them, gouge the price.
And at the time this occurred in 2012, was it ever discussed? Well, boy, we shouldn't be given this indigent contract to
well, the contract
system because they're committing this kind of fraud. Was that ever discussed by the Commissioner's Court?
You know, Memorial Medical Center functioned very well. It had a burn unit, it had a trauma center, it had 2 residency centers for many years until in 1997 there was a contract by the county commission. Richard Borchard was a judge, and Spahn offered to take over, and around the year 2000 the transaction was done. That land where Memorial sits was donated by the Baptist Foundation, not by the Catholic Church. Then they got state funds, over several million. They got federal dollars for hospitals to function and serving the poor areas of the community and the outlying areas, in addition to charities. The Catholic hospital here, I found out, has foundations and charities that were left by the Kennedy Ranch and Sarita and her family. Even the hospital, Spahn, Dr. Spahn, was married to one of the Kennedys. Dr. Spahn was an extremely poor man. He was bankrolled by the Kennedy family to start a hospital. That has never been said. The original wife of Mifflin Kennedy was Petra Vela, an Hispanic lady, prominent lady that came from Mexico, donated her fortune, and we see the paradoxes of life, how that money was used. I think eventually, Sarita East got disenchanted with Bishop Mariano Garcia.
You know what's interesting is everyone thinks that they put these deed restrictions in, and they set up these foundations, and that money's going to be used the way it was intended to use, but apparently not.
No. We're seeing that in the city. We're seeing that in almost every entity of government. We're starting to see in the city council, for instance, that the city manager, the bond monies where the people voted for improvements and the fire station and the fire department and to keep the Heroes program going, the city manager making a statement that the monies don't have to be spent as were originally intended. The funds can be moved around. All they have to do is file an appeal.
They're going to use the money for whatever they intend to do. They ignore whatever they want.
Then they have this board, this 4A board or secret board, where they accumulate all this money, and they got this board. Then you have stores like Stripes, like Sam Kane. They go and lobby for this monies that came from bond monies, and it's very spooky because it's sort of like a shadow government that they have in Corpus Christi. But what's going on? I think that the people in power bankroll most of the politicians that are in office. That's why they went for office. The regular people out there are being brainwashed by the Caller Times. I think the Caller Times is not a free press in that it has the interest of the status quo, in that it is a corporate member of the EDC.
Well, they never questioned any of these demolitions.
Well, they promote them. They endorse.
Of the two ships of the Columbus fleet, did they question?
No.
Katy turned down was in 1995. Did they question?
No.